Is it only scheduled to 4:30 though?
Yeah, they're doing UFF immediately afterwards.
Okay, hard stop.
Yeah, we're giving them a double whammy.
Feel bad for UFF. We're gonna set them up just to, have a bad meeting. Like we'll put Patrick in a bad mood just for that.
I think your article is gonna put him in, in a bad mood.
I think so, yeah.
Nice. Gang's all here.
Hi.
Wow.
Yo, yo. Yeah, I don't know if you saw my comment, Hannah, about the evaluation article. I felt like
I
it's
did.
probably better to just wait for them to tell us, or yeah, for them to give us their proposal first, so that we know what they have in store for us, and not give them any unnecessary ideas.
Yeah, I gotcha. It's also, it buys us some time to collect information on what people want the evaluation sheet to look like.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, honestly, till the end of the semester, I think we're pretty much good on proposals. Like, they're pretty much all written up. So
Okay.
yeah.
I'm waiting to rework Article 4 until they bring it again. So,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we can wait on that.
Well, this is a good reason why you should have a UPS. The power just flickered. Oh my, I have all my computer and everything on a UPS, so
Mm.
it's been happening. This is the third time that's happened in a few days, though. I don't know what the heck's going on around here.
Is this at home?
Yeah, it's in my apartment. Yeah.
all right, I got the notes doc open.
Nice.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? now?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So should we get started since we're on such a tight schedule and you guys have a hard stop right at 4:30?
Yeah, we're actually hopping out of this one and going to bargain with UFF. So yeah, we can go ahead and get started. We've got, I think my whole team's here, so we're
Okay.
ready to go.
Excellent. So I saw your email that Article 10 will be on the December 7th agenda, right?
Yep.
I saw on the website that it's like a 2-day event. So does that mean it could be discussed on the 7th or the 8th, or how does that work?
I honestly did not ask that question, Sikander. I will find out for you though.
Okay, sounds good. Also with regard to Article 17, are you guys cool with just ratifying it with the full agreement, or yeah, how do you want to do that?
I think that's okay. I don't think that we have, I don't think we have really any, just because of the timing of it. I mean, let's see how long it takes us to sort of do this. If we get to a spot where we think we want to bring that by itself, we can. But I think for now, if that's done and we can put that in the done category, I think we're probably all right to just take it up with everything else, unless you guys really want to do it.
No, I mean, I was gonna
by
say that
itself.
it's unlikely that we will do it before February because we're just, yeah, I mean, holding a ratification vote is a kind of a pain in the ass for us.
Right. Well, and we got the holidays, and then people are going to be gone, and I mean,
Yeah, right. And given that there's ongoing negotiations, I mean, yeah, people will probably just be confused by the whole thing.
right.
So I don't know if you saw by email, I sent you our signed TAs for Article 15 and 18.
I'm having some printer problems. I actually moved offices, so as soon as I can print them out, I think we're probably good, and I'll get them signed and send them back to you.
Okay, and also for Article 14, it was just like a minor change, which reflected your proposed change to
Right.
the Article 15 type.
Yeah, I think we're good with that too. So I think that looks like we got probably 3 more. Granted, some of the easier ones, but we'll take it. We got some that
Yeah.
are done, and we can put them in the done column.
Agreed. And then, so just to follow up on Article 15, you had suggested last time that we should do that, put the outside employment provision in Article 20 under employees' rights. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, did you, by the way, get all the proposals for today? I sent that a few minutes ago.
Oh, did you send them a few minutes ago?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, I see them here. Let me forward them real quick to my team.
sure. And I can.
And then I don't know
share-
if you want to just share, if you
I'll
just
do
wanna,
that,
like,
yeah, that's what I'm
whatever
gonna
you
do.
want to start with.
Yeah, so I'll just start with that one. Can you guys see my screen, Article 20?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we don't really have any changes to the first page. Basically, there's 2 changes here. One is we removed this this provision about forming a childcare research committee. This
Okay.
had been formed previously. It was kind of in the lead up to the Article 8 reopener about paid leave, and so the findings of the report were presented at those bargaining sessions, and the committee was disbanded. I have mentioned previously that, like, if there are other kind of things where we feel like there might be mutual agreement, but we need to kind of do more research, we could potentially set up a research committee for other topics. I did think that Article 19, the miscellaneous provisions, was kind of the more sensible place to put it. I don't know why it was put under this article. But yeah, that's just a kind of procedural thing. And then, yeah, we basically just added the outside employment provision, which was TA'd in Article 10 already. And I also removed any reference to UF Olio as you had suggested last time.
Okay, can you
So,
just scroll up again real quick?
Sure. There are no changes up here.
No changes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, that one looks relatively straightforward. I'm sorry, were you done kind of presenting it, or
Yeah,
did
that's
you have
it.
more?
Yeah, no, that's all.
UF team, do you have any questions on Article 20? All right, thank you for that one. We'll take that one under consider. I don't see a lot of questions I think we're likely to have on that one, so.
Okay, great. The other one that I wanted to, so we're basically bringing you a new proposal for Article 11. I did manage to chat with the former GAU co-president. He was co-president when the last round of negotiations were happening, and
Okay.
this suggestion had come from his time. So actually, we
Okay.
had we somewhat kind of misinterpreted what the suggestion was. So it's not quite that there have been instances where GAs have been required to by their department to take more credits than what their waiver allows for. Although, as Jacob has mentioned previously, that does happen in the psychology department, but in their case, the department covers the extra credits. The main types of incidents, there were basically 3 types of cases that would happen. One is where there have been cases where a GA wanted to take 12 credits so that they could graduate earlier. Another case is where there's a class that a GA really wants to take, but they're already loaded up with required classes. And the third case, which is kind of the least common, is when a class was not quite required by their master's advisor, but like more or less kind of like wink, wink, you should take this class. But they were being asked to take this class in the summer when they didn't have a GA appointment. They're on a 9-month appointment. So basically, we brought a new proposal to address those issues, and basically the way we've written it. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
So yeah, the way we've written it is that we leave it at the discretion of the university that a GA may be granted a tuition waiver beyond the minimum required for their appointment. And basically in 2 cases, either that they can request a waiver for additional credit hours with the approval of their advisor and department chair. Or if they're on a 9-month appointment, they may request a tuition waiver for credit hours in the summer semester with the approval also of their advisor and department chair. And they must be eligible for reappointment the following semester to qualify. And basically, we felt that, you know, leaving it at the university's discretion should avoid the kind of indirect budgetary pressures you had mentioned last time. And also, we think it could be a win-win, honestly, because if, you know, applied correctly, would reduce time to graduation for a lot of people, and that's you know, often used as a criterion for university rankings, which, you know, UF puts a lot of pride in. So I think that's, yeah, something for you all to consider.
No, I appreciate that. I think the way it's restructured, it's something we can definitely look at. I mean, we won't do it now. We're gonna have to have some conversation with you know, Tom and Judy and Robert. I think there's some business process questions I have, but they're pretty technical, and like I said, they're questions in my mind. So we'll take that one under advisement, and when we caucus, I'll sort of go through some of that with them. But I appreciate this. I think it definitely makes a lot more sense now, and I think that you definitely cordoned it off and constrained it in such a way that it seems pretty tailored to the cases you're presenting. So I mean, I think it's definitely something we can consider now. I think in the previous one, it would have been much more difficult.
Okay, great. And then we had 2 more proposals.
Okay.
Another kind of proposal with minor changes. So that's Article 16.
Okay.
Can you all see my screen here?
Yes.
Okay. So the first change is we changed the title of the article to GAU rights, because we felt like some of the provisions go beyond just use of facilities, and also some of the proposed provisions are also kind of not directly related to that. So that was the first change. The other main change is basically the total allotment of FTE for release time appointments. So the current FTE allocation for RTs is 4.32, which is tied to the old typical FTE of 0.33, and it provided for 13 appointments in a year. So basically, this would be trying to get the FTE of the release time appointments up to what the standard appointment is, and I know the university is generally trying to standardize that as well. So just to be in line with that, we would ask that the standard release time appointment be 0.5 FTE, and we remain with the 13 appointments per year, which would increase the total FTE to 6.5. And then the other two additions that we've made here is one, being notified about known office locations for graduate assistants, and a report of that should be provided every year in the fall semester, and also a notification of graduate orientations, so that we know where graduate orientations are happening, so that we can present about GAU.
So can I ask a quick question about 16.6? So this is talking about the employee's physical office on campus where they're assigned to work. Like if you're in the bio building, if you're in a particular room,
That's
it would
right.
say Sikander's in this room. Okay.
Yeah, right. Or I mean, it doesn't have to be so specific in the sense of like, I'm in this room, but just that like, okay, there are GAs in the room that I work in, you know?
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Any questions about that?
I've actually got one for Tom or Judy. Right now, does the grad school sort of collect and chart what would be required in 16.7? Is that something that we currently do, or is that something that would require sort of a change in practice?
Well, no, we always reach out to GAU to come to TA orientation, and they're always a part of grad orientation every year. So not sure of this in the contract.
But it's part of by practice, it's something we're already doing is my question.
Right. It's not a formal policy, but we extend it out to all the organizations. GAU comes to TA orientation for the new TA orientation, and they have a part in our graduate school orientation.
Sikander, oh, go ahead.
Maybe I could get Jacob to chime in on this part, because we were at the beginning of this year trying to attend as many orientations as possible, and it was kind of I mean, I don't recall that being facilitated by the university at all. Like we were kind of just finding out about different orientations.
Okay, so when you see different orientations, there are department orientations that the graduate school is not a part of.
Okay,
So
right.
we get it like you, like maybe
Okay.
he wants to invite one of us over. But we do the new TA orientation, which GAU has always been a part of that, as well as our new graduate student orientation that we do through Grad Start, as well as the resource, we do the Zoom meetings. So as long as I've been in this position, we've always had a relationship with GAU.
I believe
These would be the
yes.
department level ones?
That would
believe-
not, yeah, that would not come through the graduate school.
Okay.
I believe that the university did email our email about the ones that you're mentioning, Judy. As far as departmental ones, we have had to reach out through stewards to learn about departmental ones, and in some cases departments have said that they're not allowed to let us, which is not true, but they would not take it. They would not listen when we said that they could let us attend the orientation. So it would be helpful to have clarity that it's allowed, and especially to be notified of them, independent of relying on stewards to tell it to us in a uncoordinated way.
Jacob, would you feel comfortable sharing with us some of the places you've had that difficulty, or no?
Let me talk with the rest of the bargaining team, like when we
Okay.
split. I can, if everyone's good with that, we can do it next time.
Okay. Not a precondition to saying yes. It would just be helpful for us to know, like, what the, so that we would know sort of surgically who to talk to about what their issue was, where did they get their information, stuff like that. So we could maybe we could plumb that a little bit. Okay. I will say, with respect to 16.6, that's actually something that I have been dealing with since September on the UFF side, and I'm working with the data, somebody in IT to try to run a I don't know exactly what the data sharing is called, but the physical office locations is in a different system than the ERP. So that's a work in progress on the UFF side. So I will I'll have to make some calls on that one, but let me we'll take that away, and thank you for that, and we will get back to you on this one.
Okay, great. And then the last proposal, which has some pretty major changes, is the one that Austin worked on. It's Article 13 on discrimination. So
Okay.
I'll let Austin take it away.
Share this real quick. Okay, you guys see that all right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, let me zoom in a little bit real quick. Whoops. Okay, so this is Article 13. It's discrimination. As you can see, we've made a lot of changes to it. So I'm going to try to walk through a little bit and try to outline this. Some of it is a bit thick, so you can stop me at any point and ask questions. But it's pretty major changes here. So the first part with 13.1, I did two things. The first thing is I added UFF GAU for the acknowledgement. We discussed that last week, that if we're acknowledging the university is saying something, we should say UFF GAU is also agreeing to it. So I added that. And then in the second half of the paragraph, you can see I added a bunch of different discrimination classes to not discriminate against, in addition to the ones that were already existing. So we have gender, gender expression, national origin, veteran status, height, weight, genetic information, native language or dialect, HIV antibody status, pregnancy, domestic partnership status, familiar status, including parental status, anything else protected by law, as well as any conditions not directly or substantially related to effective performance. And then finally, I added the word solely here, just to make this more clear that personnel decisions are based off of, job-related criteria and performance. It just said it was based off of it, so I wanted to make it a bit more clear that it is solely based off of that. So you can stop me at any point. I'm just going to keep going until I hear anything, but if you have anything, let me know.
Can I ask for a pause there? Can you walk us through the construction of that, sort of the last category in that series that starts with as well as? Can you kind of maybe dig into that a little bit and explain kind of what the intention is there and how you sort of arrived at that wording?
So this is based off of, I went through a bunch of different kind of agreements for different universities to try to figure out some wording on this kind of stuff. So this is just my way of saying there are maybe other classifications that we're not catching here, but we want to make it very clear that anything that is affecting your personnel decision is based off of things that are related to your performance in your position. So you won't discriminate for different classes, even if they're not listed here, because we can understand, even though we could list a million things here, there may be a certain group that we're missing. So this is just to say, if there's some situation, which I don't know of any that have come up in the past, but any situation that's not covered here, but we can point and say, well, they're discriminating against that person for this certain reason, even if it's not covered. If it's not related to performance, we want to make sure we have a check in mind for that.
So just hypothetically speaking, couldn't that actually create like an infinite number of protected classes?
I mean, it could, yeah, but if you're discriminating against a class and it's not related to their performance or how well they do their job, then we shouldn't be discriminating against that class in the first place, right? So this is just covering all those minor bases that we may be missing.
I understand. Thank you.
So 13.2, this is.
Sorry to interrupt before you move on. I don't think this is your intention, but when you changed personnel decisions shall be based solely on job-related criteria and performance. The way that's written right now, that would exclude the university from making personnel decisions based on funding issues. So if there was a loss of a grant or loss of funding, that would say that we could not make personnel decisions based on that.
This language, the word solely is based from UFF's existing contract language. So the UFF does have this exact last sentence in there. So if
So-
that's an issue, then it's an issue that is drawn from UFF.
Okay, but that's not your intention though, right? Like we would still be able to make a personnel decision based on.
Yeah, no, that,
Right.
I would just say that'd be a job related criteria. If you,
Okay.
if you don't have funding, you don't have funding, right? So.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't the intention.
Yeah. So 13.2 is covering bases that are not illegal, but they're prohibited if they discriminate against any community member through inappropriate limitation of educational, employment, athletic, social, cultural, or other university activities on the basis of the classes listed above. So unless required by law to separate those kind of groups out, this is just to say that, you know, another layer of not discriminating is limiting access to these kind of activities of a sense. And this language, I think, is from the University of California systems in their existing contract language. So it's just an extra layer for what we describe discrimination as, even if it's not an illegal action.
So I'm with you on education and employment. I'm trying to think about athletic and social as categories. Are there any of those type of activities that are covered by our contract?
I wouldn't say specifically, but I mean, it's just to market if, you know, a GA is discriminated and not allowed to engage in a social activity put on by the university for one of the classes that's not required by law. We want to have some protection for that GA.
Yeah, no, what I'm sort of exploring with that comment is I just want to be careful that we are not talking about things that would have more to do with the GA being a student and less about being an employee. Because I don't think we have any like GA athletic programs or GA social programs. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yeah. And I mean, you're happy to modify this as you guys see fit and you do
Okay.
it. Like I said, a lot of this language is from those existing contracts. So I know they do stand in these other sort of systems, which sometimes matters and sometimes not. So I know in our bargaining, but I thought it was a good overall list to make sure we're not missing any sort of potential discrimination for these groups.
I understand. Thank you.
So 13.3 is an additional source of data for UFF GAU, where the university will provide statistics regarding the funding of positions allocated by the CBA to across the different categories of race, gender, and status as an international or domestic GA, and give it to UFF GAU. It's not a breakdown of person by person, even though we get that information. Because we don't want to kind of go that far. It's mostly the number and percentage of students by these within each department. So it's kind of that breakdown so we can make sure and check on our end, you know, a backdrop to check that there's no sort of discrimination on these classes happening. And we want to make sure that funding is somewhat to an equal level.
So when you say classes, you're talking about the classes of individual, not classes at the university, correct? You're talking about protected classes. You're not talking about like classrooms.
Yeah,
Okay.
protected classes that we listed in 13.1.
All right, so I'm not saying we would be agreeable to this, but I will tell you that the 4-week deadline is going to be very, very difficult for us to meet just based on the amount of data that would have to get pulled. But we will, I will reach out to the data folks to see how viable that is, and then I'll talk to the team about. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I might be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure our existing request for information where it's the breakdown of all GAs, I think that's by the end of the 3rd week of the semester in the current contract language. So this would be, you know, similar to that sort of timeline.
Yeah, I think in terms of statistics, I mean, is there like a list of statistics that you have in mind, or is it just the dollars?
And this is funding as based off race, gender, and status as international and domestic GA. So it's just how funding is broken down between those different groups in each department.
So like it's this many payroll dollars went to this particular race of employees within this department? Like I'm trying to figure out like what the output would be that you're actually interested in.
Yeah, I mean, something like that would be agreeable. Just something that we can check that, based off of an FTE basis, are people of different races and genders and international domestic GAs being paid around the same in departments. Right. And we understand that like some will be paid more or less depending on how long they've been there or, time they were hired and what their actual job is. But we just kind of want to make sure of an overall level that we can check that there's no sort of discrimination happening.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
13.4 is about access to all gender bathrooms. So this is in regards to the state bill that went across this last year and kind of our correction for it while making sure that the law is followed as it is written. So this is increasing the access to all gender bathrooms within a reasonable access to all GAs in their working location. So we recognize the importance of having safe and accessible bathrooms. The university shall provide that all GAs have reasonable access to all gender restrooms within a reasonable distance to their work location. And reasonable distance is defined as within the same building in which a GA is expected to spend the greatest amount of their working hours. So if they're split between several buildings, whichever one they have the plurality of spending time in. If assistance with access is needed, the GA or UFF GAU will contact the department and request that reasonable access be given. So that it's not, automatically the university has to provide all these bathrooms based off where GAs are. It's we have to request them ahead of time to make sure the university isn't overloaded with these sort of requests immediately. Reasonable access, it doesn't have to be including a new bathroom. It can also be rechanging where they do their work and where they TA. Schedule remodification or redesigning an existing bathroom as all gender or changing the appointment of that GA. We ask that the university achieve this reasonable access within 60 days after notice is given. Considering a lot of this could just be done by section and class reassignments, we thought 60 days was very reasonable. But if the university requests more times with agreement from UFF GAU, that timeline can be extended. And then we want all bathrooms to be marked as all gender bathrooms. We want that to be done without the use of any gender signs to represent that they all are gender. And then the university shall list the locations of all gender restrooms on a campus website, which is already happening. There's already access to that on the campus map, but we thought we'd put it in here as a formal policy that we appreciate that and we want that to continue happening. So are there any questions on 13.4?
Scroll up again, I'm sorry. So we could see A, B, and C. Thank you.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding this, it just says that we just have to provide access if we receive notification that there's not currently reasonable access?
Yes, so we'll notify you that reasonable access, there's no reasonable access, and then the university gets 60 days to remedy that situation. In whichever way they see the best fit for them.
Okay.
Any further questions on 13.4?
I think we're good on 13.4.
Okay. 13.5 is sexual harassment. We had a little bit in sexual harassment before, but I found it very lacking, for lack of a better word. So this is the point where I start pulling a lot from the university, from UFF, and kind of pull a lot of their language to kind of make sure that graduate students are just as protected as faculty in a lot of these manners. So I added, first of all, the word digital for sexual harassment. I thought it was an oversight to not have digital in there. I think the university would still treat those the same as any sort of sexual harassment, but I wanted to make it clear that digital sexual harassment is real, and to make sure we're protected against that. We have here a list of 3 different examples here. So if it's made explicitly or implicitly a term of their employment, if the submission or rejection of conduct is used as the basis for employment decisions, and if it interferes with an individual's work performance. These things are taken directly from UFF as kind of a list of a couple of examples. We have examples of what sexual harassment can include, including unlawful kissing, patting, touching, fondling. And then we have 2 different types of harassment, quid pro quo and hostile environment harassment. So these really, they do overlap a lot with these 3, but we wanted to make sure that we gave more examples than less to make sure that all of our bases were covered. Okay, so it's defined as an act against a person's will, where a person is incapable of giving consent. And we have some examples of what sexual misconduct and sexual violence is. Any relationships that are consensual may involve a conflict of interest. So I linked that back to Article 15, where we have what conflicts of interest are, which include a lot of those relationship ones. And then we have language here indicating relationships that are allowed or not allowed, where a dynamic of power may exist. So there's no relationship between faculty or GAs where they're in the same department or in which the faculty has any authority over that GA, unless they came into the department with that existing. Faculty who have had any relationship with a GA of any type are not allowed to have any authority over that GA to eliminate any potential problems. And then there should be no relationships between GAs and undergrads in which there is that power dynamic as well. So this, again, is modified off UFF's existing clauses, but we matched it here to protect any sort of power imbalance that's happening in those relationships we don't want to happen. So we're eliminating those and saying those are not allowed to happen, which is matches UFF. And then this language, I believe, was already in here this is also from UFF. So it's just protecting from discrimination. It's not going to regulate the content of speech or restrict the academic or free speech of GAs. So is there any questions on 13.5?
Just so you're aware, you might already be aware of this, but everybody in higher education has been anxiously awaiting the federal government's new Title IX regulations, which were supposed to come out last month, and we're still waiting on them. So those will have a significant impact on how a lot of this, of what the different definitions are of sexual harassment. So, you know.
What's the name of the regulation? Sorry.
Title IX.
Title IX, okay.
So this might, I'm hoping that we'll get those soon. So if we have to keep waiting on that, this might end up having might require us to push back revising this until we get those regulations. But just a heads up that that's something that's going to be figuring into our analysis of this.
This is just existing knowledge that we have. So I'm aware of what the new Title IX will look like as well. So this is based off of existing what we know, and a lot of this is taken from UFF as well. So
right, yeah, the same will go for UFF. So kind of as a university, we're waiting to see what's going to happen with those regulations, and we'll probably be revising relevant language across the university's different regulations and policies potentially as needed.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that as well. Any other comments on 13.5 here or questions?
Is anybody else having a hard time understanding him, or is it just me?
Yeah, the last couple of times you spoke, Austin, it was a little hard to understand.
Try to speak a little bit louder. My internet kind of cuts out a little bit sometimes, so I'll try to be a little bit more clear. And you can just interrupt me if I'm not clear at any point in time. But you guys have any other questions about 13.5 here? Okay. So for 13.6, this is responsibilities regarding discrimination and harassment. So this is a lot of the other stuff that's not included. This is, when discrimination or harassment occurs, what do you do as a university, and what is the GA's role in all of that. So if a GA who has actual knowledge by direct observation or receives a formal accusation of discrimination or of harassment as defined in this article involving an individual over whom the GA has direct authority, so when there's a power imbalance there, they are mandated to contact HR and say that this is occurring. But this is for GAs who, this isn't for peer-to-peer, this is just for GAs who have a power imbalance, making them mandated reporters for students in their classes, for example, to make sure we're not missing some of those discriminations happening. GAs who believe they may be victims of discrimination or harassment may file a formal complaint with HR. That's already something they can do, but again, just formalizing that and putting it in here because it wasn't there before. No retaliation can happen here. So this is retaliation, no harassment, intimidation, threats, coercion, discrimination, or other form may be made by a faculty member, the university, or UFF GAU against anyone in this, just to make sure that we're covered. And these are anything that retaliation is going to be treated the same as the discrimination and justifies discipline pursuant to Article 21 or discipline article. Disciplinary action, so breaking that down a little bit further. If an investigation finds discrimination or harassment as occurred against a GA, the university may prescribe counseling instead of formal disciplinary action. This is from UFF. That's just a note they have in there just to make sure the university's hands aren't tied depending on the severity of cases and has a little bit of leeway in how they go about those judgments. And then the complainant shall be advised the action taken so they know that their complaint was taken seriously and that corrections are being made. So no one will be disciplined for discrimination or harassment until the investigation is complete, as described in 13.7, which is the procedure that I've outlined. And then during the investigation, the GA may be placed on leave pursuant to Article 21.3. You guys have not received our updated Article 21.3, but that is to do with leave based off of these investigations, which is from UFF and other handbooks, but we'll be matching that. So it's just saying that GAs can be placed on paid leave pending an investigation. Is there anything over 13.6 that we need clarifying on? Okay, I'm going to move to 13.7 then. So this is my attempt at updating UFF's kind of investigation protocol to match GA's. It's very minor changes. There's nothing really major here. So what an investigation or alleged discrimination or harassment shall be initiated when an individual files a formal complaint. HR gets 15 days to notify the accused, the complainant, the dean, and UFF GAU that a complaint has been lodged. The accused gets the content of the accusation and the name of the complainant as allowed by law, the date of any scheduled interview, which is not less than 7 days after the date of notification, during which time the accused shall not speak to the complainant in any aspect beyond required communication. This last part of the sentence is my addition. I believe in UFFs, it says in any it's a specific manner they're not allowed to speak in them. So I just updated it and said in any aspect beyond required. If they're required to communicate in some sort of way, which would be a rare occurrence, they're allowed to do that. But beyond that, no communication should be had. Human Resources tells them that they can have GAU representatives there at least 48 hours prior to any interview. So if they choose to have GAU counsel, then they can. And the 48 hours is an addition to me. Before, it just said you had to alert them. We wanted a 48-hour window so we could make sure that our higher unions get access and we can get legal access to them in a timely manner if possible without delaying the investigation in any way. It's going to be confidential, which is given, but again, just making sure that we're protecting everyone involved. It includes interviewing the different witnesses and parties. At any point, the university complainant and the accused may agree to a resolution if they find an agreeable terms. And upon completion, the investigators make a report to HR which goes to the accused representative, the complainant, the dean, and UFFGAU. So that's kind of the basis of how our procedure would look like. Again, a lot of that taken from UFF, and I'm sure policies that, in general, the university follows, give or take a couple of minor details there. But it's just to make sure that we have in our contract protections for our GAs as they're going through this process.
Austin, just kind of a quick minor point. The updated Title IX guidance that came out during the previous administration, like Olivia mentioned, we're waiting for the sort of the Biden administration update, but they did change some of the usage of the word. They did in general change the word accused to respondent. So just in general, like that's sort of the updated term that's used. Just so you know.
Okay, yeah, and I'm not aware of that stuff. I'm sure you guys are a lot
Yeah.
more well versed in the specific language, and I'm happy to see if you guys just change it, and like that's fine. The language, I'm not worried about that too much there.
Up in 13.7a and 1,
Yeah.
I could just be reading it too broadly. Does either of the parties have to be a member of the bargaining unit in order for you all to be notified? Because when I read 13.7a1, like neither the accused, or the way I'm reading that, neither the accused nor the respondent, or neither the complainant nor the respondent would have to be a member or in the bargaining unit for you all to be notified. The way I read that, is that the intention?
I mean, the intention is that they are, a GA at the university, but beyond that,
The respondent or the
Well,
I think
complainant?
if either party is
Yeah.
a GA, then
Okay.
these rules
Yeah.
would apply. If neither party is a GA, then this doesn't apply.
Okay. Thank you.
So moving forward to 13.7b, it will contain the following information. So this is just more about that report. The nature of the complaint, the formal statements, a summary, and a conclusion. And then the GA has a right to append a response to the investigation report. For C, the university shall take appropriate remedial measures to correct any discrimination or harassment that is found. Remedial measures shall not adversely affect the GA who was found to be the object of discrimination or harassment, and the university shall provide at the GA's request details on the measures taken. So if harassment is done against the GA has a right to know how the university has responded to those allegations, and what actions they're taking to prevent that in the future. HR will notify the complainant, the accused, the accused representative, the dean, and UFFGAU of any proposed action taken, including a counseling letter or disciplinary action. So again, people are informed of the actions being taken here. Records maintained for the purposes of investigation, formal complaints shall be confidential until a final decision is made. So for harassment investigations, parts of it were going to be closed until the final decision is made. And then the records shall be open to university personnel conducting the investigation, the accused, the dean, and UFFGAU. This is taken from UFF for the most part, just for how those records are maintained. I'm not well versed in confidentiality and how the university has to respond to those, so I did not mess with these too much. And there might be minor changes that you guys have to make as we're going along here, but that's I'm trying to just like mimic their kind of procedure and protections here in a lot of ways. In instances where no findings of discrimination or harassment is made, no records or allegations of the formal complaint will be placed in the GA's evaluation or personnel file unless the GA requests in writing that a record is placed in the file. So just making sure that if a complaint is made against the GA and they find that nothing is there, then that GA is not adversely affected down the road. And then this last note is to, again, protect these individuals. So when it comes to giving information to UFFGAU, the GA at any point can request that all of the information be given to GAU, none of the information or certain parts be redacted. This is just to make sure that when they're sharing information with us, that it's only as much as they're also comfortable with giving out. This was not mimicked in UFF. I added this as an extra note just to make sure that GAs are protected, including against individuals here, right? So are there any questions about 13.7?
Yeah, I'm not, I think with respect to G, I think it may actually run afoul of FOIA and what we have to do with respect to public records if it's part of a personnel action or something like that. But I mean, I understand the intent, but I think we may have some conflict there.
If there's a better way for you guys to word that, where, you know, we could just add beyond, you know, what is required by law to send to these different parties, you know, this is just to make sure any information that's not required by law, the GA can protect and keep as confidential as possible if they choose to.
Yeah, one of the things I will say with respect to not just G, but also F is one of the things that I think that we not necessarily struggle with, but we spend a lot of time talking about is the fact that, you know, you can have someone who is disciplined for inappropriate behavior, even if it doesn't rise to the level of discrimination, harassment. And so I will just bring that up as a topic, not necessarily a change of language, but there's a lot of confusion about, you know, if we have a Title IX investigation and the Title IX investigation does not necessarily find something that it didn't say it didn't rise to the level of sexual harassment, but it still represented inappropriate behavior. So I just want to just bring that up as a topic because sometimes people get very confused. They think the Title IX office, quote unquote, exonerated them, when in actuality, it just kicked it over to become a more general personnel misconduct investigation. So again, not that necessarily have to write anything, I'm just bringing it up as a talking point because people do get confused about that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, we want to make sure that people are protected and we're not kind of limiting the investigation in any sort of way. We want to make sure university follows through on, you know, dealing with these allegations without being, you know, hands tied behind their back in any sort of way. For 13.8, so the GA has access to inspect documents relating to any claim of discrimination, harassment in which the GA was a party, except for records that are exempt from those provisions and are kept secret or kept confidential pursuant to law. 13.9 is the grievance procedure. So claims of discrimination and harassment brought against the university may be presented as grievances pursuant to Article 22. However, no grievance may be maintained under this section if the GA has initiated a complaint arising from the same issue with any court. So if they're going above GAU's authority, it's obviously above a grievance sort of level at that point. And then appeals of adverse employment decisions made against GAs accused of discrimination and harassment, as well as against GAs in the form of retaliation, may be presented as grievances and pursuant to Article 22. So these are very specific. These are just any sort of retaliation or discrimination or harassment, or charges against the university as a whole in terms of and it is an alternative to, you know, an individual sort of discrimination. This is more of a system-wide sort of system.
I've got a question on. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say this is also taken from UFF's existing language.
Yeah, so this is actually problematic language in that I think it makes something unclear and it's something that we plan on working on with them. So 13.9 is written specifically, or the mindset is with respect to people who are the respondent or the accused, or is it for people that are the complainant, or is it for a third party? Like, what is A and B are specifically, like, the intention is to apply them to which group or all groups?
I think it's if you are the accused or the person who was discriminated, harassed against, right? If you were one of the two parties there.
Because one of the things that has come up, and I'll just be sort of straight to the point on this, is that people may file a complaint with the Title IX office, and they will also file a grievance. The way this is kind of written, and because of the nature of these sort of investigations, they really should live in the Title IX office, and they really shouldn't be, in my opinion, handling them in a grievance hearing with limited scope of investigation power. And you really, if there's people that have been a party to this type of interaction, they really shouldn't be interviewed multiple times. So I just bring that up, not because I have a specific suggestion. I just want to be somewhat cognizant and thoughtful of the fact that, you know, if someone has undergone this type of treatment, you know, they need to be talked to a trained investigator, not necessarily being called to attend a grievance hearing or agree, you know what I'm saying? That would almost be secondary to the primary thrust of the investigation, which really should be handled, like you put in, I think it was up in 13.2 or 13.3, by a trained Title IX investigator rather than a grievance officer. That's the only thing I'm just pointing out.
There may be better ways of wording this. Again, I'm not well versed in a lot of this or how it affects the real world. So I'm happy to see you guys modify this and make sure you have those protections in place to make sure that people who are bringing claims against the university specifically can still be protected in those sort of senses. For 1310, here, this is upon the passage of law. So upon the passage of state or federal law that requires the university to enact policy that discriminates against any protected class in section 13.1 is subject to a grievance. So what that means is prior to any grievance, they will, UFFGAU and the university attempt the following procedure. Upon enactment of any policy change, UFFGAU determines is subject to 13.10a. UFFGAU has 60 days to notify the university of their intent to grieve. The president's designee shall meet with UFFGAU representatives within 15 days following this notification to bargain the enacted policy with the intent to eliminate potential discrimination as identified. And failing to facilitate a mutual compromise, UFFGAU has 30 days to file a formal grievance pursuant to Article 22. And then until either the procedure outlined as 13.10b or an official grievance is satisfactorily resolved, the enacted policy shall not be enforced by the university unless required by law.
I think just in general, I'm not gonna lie, I think just sort of the comprehensive nature of the way 1310 is written, combined with the infinite number of classes that could be created by 13.1 is gonna be relatively problematic, but we will take a look at it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we're protecting against all sorts of classes, and this is just saying if we identify discrimination within those classes.
Part
And
of
then
it
13
too is that it's done by, a lot of this is done by regulation, not necessarily done by specific law. I mean, even the Title IX office out of the federal government oftentimes will issue guidance and white papers, not necessarily pass a specific law to amend the original Title IX. So, I mean, I'm not a constitutional scholar. I don't claim to be one, but I do think that the way this is constructed is just gonna be difficult. I just want to sort of, in a general sense, as a response, just kind of say that out loud.
Yeah, I mean, we're happy to see how you guys modify this and see you know, what works best with your guys' knowledge on this. The goal here is to protect any policies that do discriminate against GAs. Specifically, we did laws, regulations is probably an oversight that we should include here to make sure that anything's happening. But you know, when there are when university is held against you know, its hands are tied and it says it has to enact these policies that we identify discrimination. GAU can help work with the university to eliminate discrimination as much as possible. That doesn't mean we can get rid of it, but because we have to still follow the wording of the law, but we will work to make sure that everyone is kind of happy with you know, what's going on at the end of the day, and we're all aware of what's going on. And then 13.11 is was existing language. That was the old, I think, 13.7. So
All right. Well, thank you for the work on that. Clearly, you spent a significant amount of time working on that. So I want to tell you, I appreciate how much time and thought you clearly put into it. We are not going to have time to sort of caucus and come back on anything, but I want to say for the UF team, was there anything about this one or any of the other ones that we have? We only have a few minutes left. Anything else that we want to ask about or sort of dig into a little bit? All right, well, Sikander, I will say this, thank you to you and your team. I appreciate you guys certainly came prepared and ready to bargain. That's very much appreciated. Clearly, when we, this Friday we have off, but the Friday following, just kind of like you guys did today, we will be prepared to bring you significant proposals and articles. I don't know which ones exactly yet. It'll probably be a combination of maybe some of the CCL stuff and then responses to, I think you now have probably 6 outstanding. You had 2 plus I think the 4 you've added today. So there's 6 that we could refer to, and I think we still have a handful of ones that neither of us have put across the table yet. So again, thank you, and we will plan on seeing you all a week from Friday, which is the 17th.
Right. Okay,
Or
we're looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you all very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, so given that, well, there's only 4